I think there are like three reasons why we prioritize building for Africa rather than sort of like building for North America. The first one was from a culture standpoint, culture storytelling and positioning standpoint. You know, we can build, sort of like generic games, and we would just be one of those studios that creates generic content that no one knows about. I think Marie was just talking about those payment platforms that no one knows about. Obviously, makes hopefully billions of dollars. But we could be one of those types of companies, or we can try and have some form of identity. And we chose kind of like identity, cultural identity, and African-based studio building rich, hopefully rich African content. So that's reason number one. Number two is like addressable market. Like mobile is large, internet penetration is there, population is large. So there is a potentially large user base that can be targeted with this type of content. And I think the third one is around cost of acquisition. And I think like that ultimately is the most important one, the one that is often disregarded when people think about, what region of the world do you build for? So sitting in Lagos and having limited investment, if we build for a North American market, the cost per acquisition of a customer in the US is something that we could just never, never even dream about. And we could never compete with anybody else in the same category as we are. So if you imagine, say, Showmax as an example, going to the US and trying to acquire US customers, they're competing with Netflix, they're competing with, like Hulu, they're competing with Disney Plus, they're competing with Amazon Prime. They can never compete in terms of advertising dollars, even though, Showmax is a huge company within the continent. When they go into a market like that, like ITV Plus, like every single person who has some kind of like streaming service, they couldn't compete on user acquisition. But in the African market, they absolutely can. They stand a chance. Like their cost per user acquisition here much lower. So, that's pretty much the same consideration that we had. So when people say, oh, you're building for, a market that is not quite valuable, you look at it from a cost standpoint, our cost per acquisition is as low as like 5 cents. If we were in the US, the lowest that we would probably get is somewhere around about $1.50 if we were lucky, if we were in the right category. And that's just for one user.